Thank you, David, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce OreCorp and the Nyanzaga project. Please, next slide, which is our disclaimers. These are also available on our website for your further review. We can then move to the Nyanzaga project specifically. We completed our definitive feasibility study in August, so very recently. The DFS delivered a project of significant scale, excellent production profile of almost 250,000 ounces of gold per year for the first 10 years of production, a long life operation, a low all-in sustaining cost of $954 per ounce, a pre-production capital cost of $474 million. Now that includes the concurrent development of an open pit and underground operation, a robust NPV and IRR, short payback period, and a low emissions intensity. Next slide, please. Our key focus at present is the project financing work stream. We are still well funded for our current level of activity. We've appointed Auramet as our debt advisors. We've recently received significant interest from various international banks, African and local Tanzanian banks, well in the excess of our $300 million debt target. We're also in discussions with several credit funds and royalty providers as potential additional sources of funding for the project to ultimately minimize the dilution to our shareholders and to come up with the most suited or best available finance package to take the project forward. Next slide, please. So if we have a quick look at our capital structure, 399 million shares on issued. 63% of the shares are held by our top 20 shareholders. If we have a quick look at those on the right-hand side, we've got Rollason and Mutual Investments. These are two ultra high net worth individuals in Western Australia. There's Federation Mining, the see-through owner to that is Australian Super. And then a new addition to our shareholding structure is Tim Goyder from the Liontown and Chalice fame. Tim acquired his interest in OreCorp through a recent sale of a block of shares that was held by Wilson Asset Management, which we believed was a non-natural holder who acquired that block of shares through their acquisition of Westos, a investment arm of Euroz Hartleys. So Tim acquired 4% in OreCorp through that transaction. Rollason also increased their shareholding by an additional in the same transaction, and then various of our existing shareholders and several new shareholders participated. So very pleased with that transaction. Next slide, please. We've got an experienced board and management, and specifically in Tanzania, dating back to the early 1990s and mid-1990s through Matt's involvement and Alistair's involvement in various projects respectively, and then myself and Michael Davis from the early 2000s. Next slide, please. So Nyanzaga is located in the northwestern part of Tanzania, 60 kilometers south of a town called Mwanza. That is the second largest city in Tanzania. The project is located in the Lake Victoria goldfields. It is a province of world-class gold endowment, significant producers proximal to Nyanzaga, such as Geita, Bulyanhulu, historically Buzwagi, and then also North Mara to our northeast. Next slide, please. So we now have our two cornerstone licenses in place, being the special mining license that was granted on the 13th of December last year, and also our environmental certificate. The project is very well supported by infrastructure and services. We've got an existing access road from Mwanza that runs past our site, approximately 7 kilometers from Nyanzaga. We've got access to water from Lake Victoria, and then access to the grid power through the Bulyanhulu substation, and we'll access that through a 53-kilometer overhead power line. The power in Tanzania is very competitively priced at 8 cents per kilowatt hour, and the Tanzania grid is deemed a green grid under the EU guidelines, consisting of a combination of hydropower and natural gas. Next slide, please. So we declared the first ever ore reserve for Nyanzaga as part of the DFS, containing 40 million tons at above 2 grams a ton for 2.6 million ounces. We've also then identified further opportunities to extend the life of mine beyond the current 10.7 years in the form of an exploration target as a potential depth extension to the Nyanzaga deposit. And we believe that may contain between 4 and 6 million tons of mineralized material. There's also the opportunity for a fourth stage to the Nyanzaga open pit at the current gold price environment, and that will contain 8 million tons at 1.17 grams per ton. So the combination of those two may increase our mine life by 3 to 5 years. We've also recently announced the drilling results for the Kilimani deposit, which is currently a small oxide deposit 400 meters to the north of Nyanzaga. And that drilling confirmed that the feeder systems to Kilimani remains open at depth and along strike to the north. Next slide, please. So a quick breakdown of our pre-production capital cost estimate. Half of the mining cost relates to the establishment of the open pit mining contractor, and then approximately 12 million tons of pre-strip material required. The balance is for the establishment of the underground operation. The process plant is a 4 million ton per annum, very conventional, well-proven CIL facility, so nothing fancy there. The infrastructure cost includes $30 million for the establishment of that overhead power line and associated substations. And then our owner's cost includes $22 million for the resettlement of the community within our entire SML boundary. Table on the right-hand side provides you with a bit of a breakdown of that attractive all-in sustaining cost of $954 per ounce. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the DFS delivered a very attractive production profile. We expect to produce nearly 200,000 ounces of gold in the first year of production. That will then steadily increase to almost 300,000 ounces a year for years 5, 6, and 7. Next slide. Nyanzaga compares very favorably to our peers, both on the reserve grade of plus 2 grams a ton, and then also on the life of mine annual production, as indicated by the chart on the left. Next slide, please. We do have a strong focus on ESG. We maintain very positive relations with our host community. We've done significant work with our host community, specifically in regards to the resettlement action plan over the past 18 months, and pleased to report that we continue to receive good support from the host community. Our emissions intensity is lower than the average for the gold mining industry, and that will further improve with the construction and commissioning of the Julius Nyerere hydropower station, which will increase the hydro contribution to the national grid from the current 36% to a reported 71%. We will then also investigate further opportunities to reduce our emissions footprint during our design phase and future operational life. Next slide, please. So project financing is scheduled for completion by Q1 2023. We achieve that successfully. We believe early construction works will then commence by mid-2023 for first gold production second half 2025. Next slide, please. We've identified various project upside opportunities. The DFS was costed in an escalated cost environment. We are starting to see some improvement on manufacturing costs, but importantly also lead times, both for manufacturing and logistic lead times and costs. Also, our open pit mining unit cost benchmarks quite high, and we believe there's room for improvement during our binding tender process that's imminent. There's been a recent change in Tanzania, which saw a reduction of 2% or offers a reduction of 2% in the royalty. That equates to approximately $35 per ounce in our all-in sustaining costs. I've already discussed some of our upside opportunities. We're also testing several satellite deposit targets within our SML boundary, and will continue to do so in the coming months and years. Next slide, please. We've seen significant political change in Tanzania over the past 18 months, more specifically since the commencement of Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan as president in March 2021. She immediately reached out to the international community, her neighbors, and since then we've seen a significant influx of international investment through the likes of BHP, Barrick, Kabanga Nickel, Total Energies on the East African crude oil pipeline, and more recently the detailed negotiations between Shell and the government of Tanzania on a multi-billion-dollar LNG project. Next slide, please. So just in summary, Nyanzaga offers an excellent project, long life, strong production profile, high margin. There's significant interest from various financial institutions to assist in the funding of the project. We believe we are very undervalued compared to our peers, and we look forward to be the first new gold mine in Tanzania for over 15 years. Thank you, David. Over to you.
Thanks, Henk. Great presentation, clearly a robust project. I just wanted to step back a little bit on the macro, and you did touch on it. Tanzania itself, from a historical exploration development point of view, has probably been beaten up a little bit due to historical reasons. How have you seen the changes in the recent years? And you did touch on it in your last slide, but how have you practically and operationally seen the changes? And that obviously gives you the confidence and the excitement about developing this project.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, David. Historically, Tanzania used to be a very favorable investment destination for the international investors. It went through a couple of years of very testing times, from 2017 to early 2021. That change then happened through the appointment of Her Excellency. We saw significant change on macro level from very early on. It took a little bit longer for that to then filter through the various government institutions. And we are pleased to report that we see continued improvement in our engagement. So where 18 months ago, it was very difficult to discuss any obstacles that investors may face, there's now a genuine drive and desire to better understand these obstacles, to remove those or address those, to ultimately secure the international investors. So significantly positive change over the several months.
And for a company such as yours, there's sort of a stick with it approach. It's you believe in the project, so you've got to commit to the process. And while, like you say, there were a couple of tough years, it was all about continuing the process and working with government and the relevant bodies to ensure that as you got to this stage, that the tide may have turned in terms of the macro.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that is critical to maintain those positive relations and to demonstrate that you try to do the right thing and that you work closely with your host communities and host government to ultimately derive a result that's in best interest of all parties involved. And that's certainly paid off in our case.
Yeah, look, and you did mention early in your presentation, people do forget that Tanzania has and is a very strong mining focused and resource exploration and development focused country. So the skill sets within country are immense and can clearly be applied to this project.
Yeah, absolutely. And a long mining history dating back to the mid-1990s. So we're now well into the second generation of miners within Tanzania. So very good pool of skills available, which is a big positive for us as a project.
And clearly nothing's been announced, so I don't want you to break any news here today, but discussions with financiers, how are they progressing?
Yeah, very well. Lots of interest from banks in particular, but also from PE groups, royalty groups, and the likes. So again, if we rewind 18 months ago, the interest from the banks were minimal, if not non-existent. Fast forward 18 months, that's exactly the opposite, fortunately. Not a lot of good projects for these financial institutions on the African continent to deploy their funds to. And that's really where Nyanzaga presents a unique opportunity, not only to our investors, but also to these financial institutions.
Congratulations, Henk, and the team for sticking with it, committing to Tanzania and doubling down on the project at what would have been a very tough time, but you're clearly reaping the benefits now of the hard work that's gone in over many years. So look forward to following the company and the project development with interest over the next certainly 6 to 12 months as you lock in financing and move towards production. So Henk, congratulations, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. And thank you all for your participation in this presentation.